In the world of late-night television, Johnny Carson was, without question, the undisputed GOAT. For over 30 years, he sat atop the throne, hosting Hollywood's brightest and boldest. But behind the charm and quick wit was a man often disarmed by a very specific kind of guest. These were not just actresses, they were women who stirred something in Johnny's famously unshakable composure. These are the 6 most promiscuous actresses the king of late night ever hosted. Number 6. Sophia Lauren. Johnny was a kind and cold guy. He didn't just make people laugh, he kept them at a distance. But Sophia Lauren walked right through that wall like it was paper. Johnny always carried himself like a polished, thoughtful Midwestern gentleman, controlled, composed, and always 10 steps ahead. But whenever Sophia's name was on the guest list, something shifted. He wasn't just preparing for another interview, he was bracing for an experience. To him, Sophia wasn't a star, she was a portal. She reminded him of a world he'd never touched, loud, colorful, full of wine and sun and danger. There's a backstage story from the early 80s, before she came on The Tonight Show to promote her memoir, Living and Loving. A sound technician recalled how Johnny spent an unusual amount of time in his dressing room, obsessively practicing basic Italian greetings in the mirror. "Buongiorno, Sophia. Sei molto bella," he whispered again and again, like a schoolboy rehearsing a love letter. But when she finally walked in, tall, poised, and radiating perfume and power, Johnny went blank. The Italian disappeared. All he could manage was a goofy, "Hi, Sophia," followed by that boyish laugh he only let out when actually rattled. That night, the studio lit up. Sophia didn't just enter a room, she shifted its temperature. The audience didn't watch an interview. They watched a man unravel in the most charming way possible. Johnny made fun of his Nebraska roots, calling himself a bumpkin at the Vatican. Sophia, without missing a beat, delivered her now iconic line, "Everything you see, I owe to spaghetti." But beneath the laughter, Johnny admired her for more than beauty. He once told the band backstage, "She's got strength in her bones. You can see it just by how she sits in a chair." Sophia was honest and tough. She spoke about her childhood, her shame, and her struggles without polish or pity. And Johnny, who despised phoniness, was moved by that raw sincerity. Sophia wasn't delicate. She was a wild rose growing out of rock, bright, bold, untamed. And for Johnny, she wasn't just a fantasy. She was a reminder that some women don't need to be understood to be unforgettable. She made him feel. We mean, not just flustered, but alive. Number 5. Raquel Welch. If Sophia Lauren made Johnny feel alive, Raquel made him lose his footing. She hit him like a wrecking ball, sudden, brilliant, and impossible to ignore. By the early 70s, Raquel wasn't simply famous, she was an event. Her image lived on every magazine rack in America, and when her name appeared on the Tonight Show schedule, something restless crept into Johnny Carson's dressing room. A longtime Studio One staffer later remembered one particular night in November of 1971. Johnny wasn't joking. He wasn't lounging in the makeup chair. He paced. He adjusted his tie more than necessary. He checked his reflection again and again. When the sound of heels echoed down the hallway, he stopped moving altogether, drew in a breath, and quietly joked to his assistant that he might need oxygen behind the desk. It was one of the rare moments when those around him saw the king unsettled before the curtain even rose. When she stepped onto the stage in a fitted white dress, the studio erupted. But the moment people still replay wasn't hers. It was Johnny's. He sat frozen, eyes wide, staring at her as if language had abandoned him. Instead of his usual opening line, he looked at the camera, then back at Raquel, then at the camera again. The silence stretched. The audience howled. Johnny said nothing. Well, because he didn't need to. His face did the talking. When Raquel finally spoke, He reached for his water, drank deeply, and fanned himself, cheeks flushed in a way viewers almost never saw. Yet Raquel's place among Johnny's 6 roses was never just about beauty. What stayed with him was her mind. When he teased her image, she didn't deflect or giggle it away. She met him directly. At one point, when he joked about how someone so stunning could ever be taken seriously, Raquel spoke about discipline, about fighting to be respected, about carrying a career while raising children alone in a brutal industry. The shift in Johnny was immediate. The flirtation softened into something else. It was attention, respect, and above all, identity. After the taping, Johnny reportedly sat alone for a while, script resting in his hands, smiling to himself. He'd been reminded that some women aren't meant to be chased. They're meant to be witnessed. Raquel Welch stands near the top of Johnny's private list because she embodied power without apology. She could unmake him with a look, then earn him back with substance. She wasn't a fantasy. She was a force. And long after the applause faded, that incredible impression stayed. Number 4, Elizabeth Taylor. Elizabeth didn't arrive on The Tonight Show. She was received. By the time Johnny Carson finally welcomed her, she no longer belonged to Hollywood in the ordinary sense. She belonged to history. The presidents had met her. Studios had built empires around her. Fame didn't orbit Elizabeth. It rested on her shoulders. When she agreed to appear in 1992, Studio One didn't feel like a television set. It felt like a secure estate. Guards doubled. Lighting was redesigned. Her jewelry alone required supervision. NBC staff recalled the strange solemnity of that night, as if something ceremonial were about to take place rather than an interview. Johnny treated it that way. He reviewed his notes repeatedly. He asked for a crystal instead of a plastic. He requested lighting that honored her eyes without overwhelming them. He told Ed McMahon that they weren't hosting an actress, but welcoming a living goddess. There was no bravado in him that night, only intention. When Elizabeth stepped through the curtain in deep purple, the room changed. The applause didn't burst. It rose slowly, as if people were standing for something greater than admiration. Johnny stood to greet her, smiling not with charm, but with respect. When her perfume reached the desk, he remarked softly that the studio itself had become more elegant. Throughout the interview, Johnny abandoned his usual control. There were no barbs or clever traps. He leaned forward, listening as she spoke about philanthropy, illness, love, loss, and the work she had devoted herself to. When she spoke about AIDS awareness, the studio quieted completely. This wasn't a segment. It was a moment. What Johnny admired most wasn't her beauty. It was her bearing. Elizabeth had been adored, criticized, idolized, and nearly lost. And she never shrank. She met everything upright. Regal not by image, but by spine. After the show, Johnny kept the rose he had prepared for her. Years later, he told friends that Elizabeth was the only person who had ever made him feel small, not diminished, but aware. Aware that some people carry a presence so complete it humbles the room around them. Elizabeth is one of Johnny's 6 roses because she embodied a form of beauty that demanded reverence, not desire, not nostalgia, reverence, and even kings recognize royalty when it enters their court. Number 3, Angie Dickinson. In most people's minds, Hollywood is a cold, shallow place where smiles are rehearsed and hearts stay guarded. But when Angie walked into Studio One, that chill melted. The space felt warmer, lighter, almost like something real had wandered onto the set by mistake. Well, sure, the world knew her as the blonde with million-dollar legs, insured by Lloyd's of London. But Johnny Carson never saw just the legs. What Angie carried was a calm, magnetic kind of grace, and for a man who kept everyone at arm's length, she somehow slipped past the defenses. In the 1970s, Angie was already a symbol of power and poise. Her role as Sergeant Pepper Anderson on Policewoman broke molds. She chased down criminals without ever losing an ounce of elegance. She'd show up on Johnny's couch with that composed confidence, never loud, never trying too hard. She didn't rely on seduction. Her charm lived in her wit, her stillness, the way she played off Johnny's banter with that subtle spark behind her eyes. Audiences could feel it too. Watching them didn't feel like TV. It felt like eavesdropping on a private romance. But to understand her impact on Johnny, you have to rewind to a quiet night in 1980. Johnny was unraveling behind the scenes, his third marriage crumbling, the pressure of holding on to his crown building fast. That night, Angie was the guest, and as always, they kept it light on camera. But after the show ended, something shifted. Johnny, usually brisk and polished, looked suddenly drained, his shoulders sagging as if the weight had finally caught up to him. Angie didn't leave. Instead of following her entourage out the back gate, she walked straight back into Johnny's dressing room. A wardrobe assistant remembered the moment. She didn't pepper him with questions. She didn't hover. She poured him a small drink, handed it over, and sat down beside him. Not across from him, not above him, just beside him, recounting an old memory from their early days in New York. For nearly an hour, she let him breathe. No spotlight, no script. Just two people, sitting quietly with everything unspoken between them. Johnny once told the band, "She understands loneliness without ever asking about it." That was Angie's power. Not just her beauty, but the way she met Johnny in his silence, and never once asked him to explain it. Number 2. Lauren Bacall. Johnny Carson always loved beauty, but he trusted intelligence. And when Lauren walked into his world, she didn't charm him. She commanded him. She never needed bright colors, breathless entrances, or theatrical emotion. Lauren arrived with something far rarer: presence. That famous look, that husky voice, that unmovable calm. Johnny once admitted there were women who made a man want to protect them. Lauren made him want to listen. She didn't invite admiration. She expected attention. Johnny had always despised emptiness. Politeness came easily to him, but respect was earned. And Lauren earned it the first moment she ever sat across from him. She came from a Hollywood that didn't glitter. It endured. The era of Bogart, of smoke-filled rooms and sharpened dialogue, where class wasn't performed, it was lived. To Johnny, she wasn't another guest. She was a challenge he welcomed. There's a backstage moment from 1985 that Studio One staff still smile about. Lauren was scheduled to appear for a new book. Instead of touching up her makeup or pacing nervously, she sat in the green room reading a political newspaper, glasses low on her nose, entirely at ease. Johnny leaned in the doorway, ready to toss out a joke. He teased her about those famous eyes and that dangerous voice. Lauren slowly lowered the paper and looked at him over the frames. Then she told him that if he kept talking nonsense, she would walk on stage and tell the audience how nervous he'd been the first time they met. Johnny froze. Then he laughed, harder than usual, and muttered to his assistant that you never tease a queen unless you're prepared to lose your crown. Their interviews were never interviews. They were duels. Johnny tried to charm. Lauren countered with a thought. He nudged the conversation toward nostalgia. She pulled it into politics, art, responsibility, and the present moment. Once, when he asked how she kept her composure in Hollywood, she told him it came from learning to see through phoniness, and then calmly implied he did the same. The studio erupted. Johnny didn't defend himself. He smiled. He loved being seen. What drew him to Lauren was not attraction. It was alignment. She forced him to stay awake, to think, to meet her word for word. He once told friends that if the world ever collapsed, Lauren Bacall would be the first person he would call. not for comfort, but for instruction. Lauren stands as Johnny's final rose because she embodied the beauty of depth. Well, not softness, not fantasy, substance. She was smoke and silver, calm and cutting, and she proved to him more than anyone that intellect is the most enduring form of seduction. Number 1. Doris Day. Doris Day never entered a room like a star. She entered like a memory, something gentle and familiar. In a Hollywood built on dazzle and noise, she carried the quiet glow of another era, the kind people associate with open windows, clean mornings, and songs drifting from old radios. For Johnny Carson, Doris was never just a celebrated actress. She was the living echo of the world that shaped him. Growing up in Nebraska, Johnny had first met Doris long before fame ever met him. He met her in empty theaters, in Saturday matinees, in the hopeful hush of a boy watching a screen that promised warmth, goodness, and possibility. While Hollywood later hardened him, Doris remained untouched in his mind. Blonde sunlight, easy laughter, kindness without performance. By the 1970s, Doris had stepped away from stardom. She chose animals over applause, privacy over premieres. She declined interviews and stages. But backstage at NBC, her name never left Johnny's lists. Producers remembered him circling it in blue ink, year after year, adding a small question mark beside it. Not a strategy, but hope. When word came that Doris might finally appear in 1976, Johnny transformed into someone entirely different. Dressing rooms were refreshed. Lighting was tested again and again. Flowers she loved were placed quietly in her space. A makeup artist later said she had never seen Johnny care so much about how a guest would feel. He checked details like a man preparing to meet someone who mattered. The night she walked out, the studio rose before she even spoke. The applause wasn't loud. It was long. Doris smiled the way people do when they recognize a place they once lived. And Johnny, sharp, controlled, playful Johnny, looked at her with something close to awe. He opened not with a joke, but with the truth. He told her he had waited a very long time for that night. Throughout the interview, Johnny stopped steering. He listened. He let her talk about animals, old sets, quiet joys. At one point, holding her book, his hand trembled slightly, not nerves, feeling. After the show, Johnny walked Doris to her car. He didn't delegate it. He didn't wave from a distance. He walked her himself, stood beside the door, and watched the limousine disappear before turning back alone. Doris wasn't excitement for Johnny. She was peace. She represented everything untouched inside him. And in a life crowded by spectacle, she remained his morning. We hope you've enjoyed this video. Thanks for hanging with us, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more videos like this. Take care. We'll see you soon.